Hey everyone, welcome to Old Movies. I'm Paul Martinovich. How are you? You well? I sincerely hope you're well. And if you're not well, hey, listen. The Mandalorian and Grogu is out this week. And when you go see it and see that little green baby alien flying around, all those problems, all those regrets, all those failures, they're all gonna dissipate. They're gonna seem insignificant by comparison with the joy you're gonna feel in Grogu's company. So hold on, this too shall pass. Anyway, this week on Old Movies, I'll be talking to my good friend and colleague at Radiance Films, Elena Lazic, about what I think is one of the great 90s films, The Truman Show. And Elena's just finished up her Peter Weir season at the BFI, which was a roaring success. So it's a great privilege to be able to speak to her about this film, which means a lot to me. But before we get into that, I had a few things I wanted to get into up at the top of the show. The first is, as always, if you're enjoying the show, then please consider supporting us on Ko-Fi with a one-off tip or a monthly donation. It all goes towards growing the show and making things better. So if that's something you want to help with, the link's in the show notes and in the bio on the various social media channels. But next up, I've got a very exciting announcement. So as I have mentioned previously, I curate the Transmission Blu-ray label at Radiance. And the whole MO of that label from the start was trying to replicate the feeling of catching something bizarre on late night television, something that felt like it was beamed in from another world. And it's also very much in debt to the programming of the late night cinemas, like the famous ones like the Scala and the Grindhouses in 42nd Street in New York. And the kind of esoteric, eccentric stuff they would put on for quite diverse audiences, and the kind of, ne'er-do-wells who would go to a cinema at 2:00 in the morning. So the late night aspect of Transmission is very much baked into its DNA, which is why I'm delighted to announce, along with Picture House Cinemas, the Transmission All-Nighter, which will be on Saturday the 20th of June at their flagship Picture House Central Cinema, obviously running into the following Sunday morning. And so, the lineup, as announced, is Richard Rush's The Stuntman, Robert Bierman's Vampire's Kiss, the two Spanish television films that make up our release two boxes, which are Antonio Maquero's La Cabina and Chico Ibanez Serrando's El Televisor, and then Robert Butler and Sidney J. Fury's Night of the Juggler. And there will also be a mystery film, which will be revealed on the night, which is not a Transmission title, but I think will be a lot of fun. A fun addition. So I'm going to host that, which should be interesting, as I don't think I have seen past 2 a.m. in quite a while. But I'm very excited. It will be a great event, great films, and tickets are on sale now. There should be a link in the show notes somewhere. Go book your tickets. It's going to be great. Hope to see you there. Next up to discuss this week's the start of the Cannes Film Festival. And I feel like there's been very little hype around Cannes this year and the films in competition. That might just be my bubble, but the most I've seen people perk up, the film I've seen most people perk up around is the John Travolta autobiographical film about planes, which does look interesting, but I don't think if that's the sort of highlight, that's not really the sign of a particularly healthy slate, I don't think, but we'll see. But interestingly, one of the films that maybe has the most hype around it is The Devils, Ken Russell's The Devils, an old movie, which has been restored in 4K and is going to be re-released in cinemas, along with a kind of all but certain and confirmed physical media release. And The Devils is obviously one of the most controversial films ever made, and it's kind of always been unavailable. I saw it, I think, sort of 12, 15 years ago, I think, at the BFI. There was some season where there was a special exception made, but otherwise, Warner Brothers have always refused to release it. It's them. It's not a film that I think can't be released due to censorship issues specifically. It's more Warner not wanting to deal with it and the fallout all these years, which I guess you can assume is because they didn't want to have a controversy like the ones you saw with Jerry Springer the Opera or Last Temptation of Christ or Life of Brian, where the religious right are activated by the content of the film, extreme content, and start picketing cinemas, etc. So it's very interesting to me that they've chosen this moment with the background of Trump and the Paramount merger and the Ellisons and all of that to fully get behind The Devils finally and push it as this major work, because it's not just that they're releasing it, they're giving it this big Cannes slot. It's getting a worldwide theatrical release. And it's actually the second announced release from Clockwork, which is this new specialty wing of Warner Brothers, which it seems has been established to kind of take on the likes of A24, Neon, Mubi, by being very filmmaker first, but also looking for these breakout hits that appeal to, I guess, younger audiences specifically. So, I mean, the first Clockwork film announced was Sean Baker's new film, which should give you an idea of the kind of sandbox that they're playing in. So it's getting this massive push. And all of this news, alongside the public messaging from Warner and Paramount and the Ellisons in public-facing things like CinemaCon, it seems like they at least see the value at this point in investing in quote-unquote proper cinema and proper filmmakers, but also their own studio legacy and tapping in directly into the same kind of enthusiasm that powers the Letterboxd and boutique Blu-ray labels, which is good news for fans of old movies in theory. But then I also don't get the sense the religious right has gone away, so especially in America. So I'm very interested to see how the release of The Devils plays out. As a sidebar, one of my favorite pieces of trivia from the past few years is that in Space Jam: A New Legacy, the LeBron James starring IP nightmare sequel to Space Jam, in one of the scenes where it's just like a Sergeant Pepper style wide shot of hundreds of things and detritus from the Warner Brothers IP library, in that shot is one of the nuns from The Devils. You just think about how fucking insane that is in this animated children's basketball film, that it shares the same cinematic universe as The Devils. Like, I feel if Adam Curtis hasn't bookmarked that for some future film he's working on, then he's missing a trick. Also, that does open the door for Vanessa Redgrave and Oliver Reed to be DLC characters in Mortal Kombat, which, I'm listening. The other thing to note is that obviously The Devils is this huge white whale in physical media land where I live. And it's crazy that in the past week we got confirmed physical releases of The Devils, Frank Perry's Last Summer from Warner Archive, and Catherine Bigelow's Near Dark, which are three of the long-time most unavailable, most wished-for titles all in 1 week, which does continue this trend, which we've seen for a while now, that all these forbidden doors, like the Golden Princess Library, like Hard Boiled and The Killer, Night the Juggler, which we put out on transmission, like Eyes Wide Shut, to an extent, that like they're all being opened now because the demand is there to do the work and pay the money, frankly, to unlock them. And The Big Picture had their biannual physical media pod last week, which had Tracy Letts and Sean Fennessy and Chris Ryan and Timothy Simons recommending lots of titles, lots of very good Radiance and transmission representation there, and alongside loads of other great stuff. And it's led to a huge increase in sales and interest, as it always does. So it is exciting times in the physical media space. And if you're not on board, come on board. Welcome, join us. Okay, so that's enough preamble. My guest today, as I said, is Elena Lazic, who works alongside me at Radiance as production manager. She's also the founder of Animus magazine. She hosts the podcast Hard Truths alongside her sister Manuela, and she's written for basically everywhere. She's incredibly knowledgeable and has very interesting and considered opinions on films, and I love discussing films with her. And she's also a huge Peter Weir advocate and has been as long as I've known her, really. And she programmed the recent season at the BFI, which I said was hugely successful. So I was really delighted to be able to discuss the Truman Show specifically with her. And it's a really fun chat. I hope you enjoy it. Here it is. So what did you do, sorry?
Didn't do anything crazy. We went to see Minority Report on 45 at the Prince Charles, which was lovely. Seen that, I don't think I've ever seen it at the cinema, so that was really lovely. A good movie, I think.
I have a very memorable memory of watching Minority Report in the cinema, because it was one of the few times that I got the gall to sneak into the next screen immediately after. And I remember seeing Minority Report and the Sam Raimi original Spider-Man back to back on the same day.
What a
Yeah, it
day.
was a pretty big day. I would have been, I was like 14, 15. Pretty good. Didn't get much
Perfect.
better than that.
Mm. It was nice because it was quite busy as well. It was like the upstairs screen, but it was basically full. And everybody was really respectful and normal, and it was great.
What were you anticipating some people hooting and
I
hollering
I
at the
never know. I mean, I don't see how
antiquated.
at that movie, I don't know. I mean, there were some funny moments like when there's like slightly incongruous things happening, or just like Colin Farrell being weird. People did laugh a little bit, but it felt more like,
Mm,
in a knowing way, in a way that like they've seen this film before and they think it's quite funny that bit. Um,
hmm.
it was cute. At
Was
the
that
same time, there was Dead Poet Society and the BFI and NFT1, and I didn't go, but pretty special.
been been a popular one, the Poet Society? I guess it's the well. I mean, as we'll get into, I think
Exactly.
his
Which
most
is the most famous one? I don't know.
I think it's clearly the Truman Show now. And I'm basing this
Yeah.
on like very flawed metrics, which is mainly that on Letterboxd, they do the popularity thing.
Oh yeah.
The Truman Show is like in the top 5 most popular films on the site. Like
But
it
that's
seems to
also, I
be,
mean, Letterboxd is like young people on it,
but I think that's a good indicator of
maybe.
its power, of its staying power. If it's something that like the next generation of cinephiles are taking to, which it seems like they are,
Yeah, that's
then
that's that's true. I agree.
but I think that is also true of Dead Poets Society, that that film has a like lasting power
Yeah.
in a different way.
Yeah, it's like a different type of reason you would watch it or different reason you would remember it. But it was funny because I was going on Letterboxd. Sometimes I try to go after the screenings to see if the reactions and stuff.
I
And
do that
it's
as well.
really hard with both those films because people all over the world are watching them all the time. So I had to go through like pages and pages.
Yeah,
And I found two different people, separate people, who both wrote, two young men who both wrote that they went to the BFI South Bank for the first time to see Dead Poets Society.
it's amazing.
I thought that was quite cute, and they both loved it, obviously. But like, I think they both, at least one of them had already seen it before as well. I think the other one maybe hadn't, but it was just like, and they weren't even together. They weren't even people who knew each other.
Yeah, I was going to
So
say because it's not a film that's particularly hard to access, so it is more likely that they were like, "This is a film that means a lot to me, so I'm going to get out of the house and go see it
yeah,
at this place."
so yeah, I think it's good that I need to like tell that to the BFI people because that's exactly what they want to happen.
Yeah,
They want
that's the
young
whole
people to
point. The
come to the
BFO.
BFI.
Yeah, well, it seems that yeah. So your season seems to have been a roaring success. The name of the season, remind me, is what there's the full BFI title of it.
It's called Finding Your Way, the films of Peter
Hmm.
Weir. Initially we had found, or I had found another name, but I wasn't really happy with it. And then the people at BFI found this name, which I think is much better. My name that I found was Fear and Awe, which I think is a bit daunting. Like it's not wrong. Like it works for me, but
No,
Finding Your Way is like a poetic way to say kind of the same thing,
yeah,
which I really like.
fear and awe suggests confrontation, right? It's a quite
Hmm.
confrontational lineup. Whereas the thing about his films is that they're so, they're not that. They're very welcoming and hugely commercial.
Yeah, but I think there is a lot of like, it is about people facing emotionally intense challenges. Like to me, these films are
Totally,
so
yeah,
emotionally intense. But like, yeah, you're right that like there's light at the end of the tunnel usually. Like they can find their way to something better.
yeah. I meant purely from a marketing point of view.
Yeah,
That's why. But like,
exactly.
you're right. There is that's something that sort of I've been revisited. It's safe to say that with your season and various other things going on, that Peter Weir is having a moment, to use the parlance of the times. And it's just interesting to sort of think why that's the case. I mean, why do you think that's the case? You've always been a very public Peter Weir advocate. Not that that's particularly unusual, but he's always been one of your. To me, it's from the outside. I've always associated him with you as one of your guys. So
Yeah.
why? So why? It's a couple of questions really. Like why? Why does he mean so much to you? And why is his work like resonating now? Do you think?
Well, I think first question, what does it mean? Why does it mean so much to me? I don't think I was. It's not like I've always been a big Weir fan. I didn't know his films until I would say. I mean, obviously, I had seen some of them the way everybody has seen some of them. I'd seen Dead Poet Society, I'd seen The Truman Show, I think I had also seen Picnic at Hanging Rock, but I didn't connect the dots, which I found is actually most people's experience when I tell them about the season. It's like they're always like, oh, the same guy directed all those films. Because you wouldn't, I mean, at first glance, there's nothing to suggest the same person would make these films of such different genres and things. And I think it's when I realized that it was the same guy that did all those films that I started, I got curious and I watched his other films. I think it was basically during the pandemic, genuinely, especially when I discovered Witness and Fearless, where I was like, wait a minute, like, why isn't everyone talking about these films all the time? Like, to me, this is like what Hollywood should be. This is what commercial I mean, commercial sometimes sounds like a bad word, but to me, it's more like accessible, I guess. Accessible cinema that's not stupid, that's entertaining, but that's also very smart and warm and very much to me, even though it was the pandemic, I was like, just couldn't wait to see them in a cinema with an audience. I was just like, this is so powerful on my television. I cannot imagine watching them in the cinema. And yeah, so that's kind of why I just got really excited about him. But I also did realize that yes, many of his films had won awards, many of his films had been nominated for Oscars. People did like his films. It's not like, his films are not liked. They are liked for the most part, for like the great majority of them. So yeah, I don't know. I think it was just discovering him at that time. I was just like, we need to celebrate this guy as an auteur, which I'm sure actually was interesting when I kind of started doing kind of research about this. I feel like there have been more scholars who have realized that he's an auteur. There are books about him, talking about him in those terms, and like kind of about the consistent themes and approaches and things that he does throughout his films, which is I totally agree with what they're saying. And these books have been around for like at least 20 years. It's not a new idea, but I feel like in the mainstream, maybe we haven't recognized them that way so much. And I don't know, I think in terms of timing, it's probably because, yeah, I mean, filmmakers like him who are commercial filmmakers, Hollywood filmmakers who make quality pictures, not all of them, but some of them kind of mid-budget dramas, just don't really exist. They just don't exist anymore. And I think with the pandemic, but also in the years since, there's more and more, I don't want to say nostalgia, but just like, it's not even nostalgia, it's like a lack, like people are missing those films. And I think that's kind of what's happening is like that people are just realizing like, oh, Hollywood used to be able to do this. Not to say, but the thing to say is that like it wasn't easy. Like it's not like there were 15 Peter Weirs. Like there really weren't.
No.
There were like, I don't know, maybe like 10 other guys who were kind of doing similar, but none that I found with this level of consistency of quality. And I think that's what's happened is like people are realizing we miss this kind of cinema. We miss this emotional cinema. It's very emotional cinema, and it's very to see it in a big screen on the big screen is like a different experience. So people have seen maybe Dead Poets, especially, and Truman Show on TV, but now there's also at the same time as this kind of awareness of him, there's also this growing awareness of like the theatrical experience, which is great. People are reconnecting with that. I remember just a few years ago, I'm sure you remember too, that people were really worried that no one would ever go to the cinema again because of streaming. And I think that's very much not the case. And these are the perfect films to watch in the cinema, which you might not be obvious because, yeah, when I first started talking with the BFI about the season, I was a bit worried. I was like, people can watch these films at home. People have seen these films at home. And it turns out that's not a thing. People really want to see them on the big screen, at the cinema with other people. I think that's the thing. So I really like to do screenings in my house with people, with friends. But I think many people don't really do that. Many people, especially young people, they kind of tend to watch films on their own, on their laptop or on their TV. And at the cinema, you try and bring a friend, or you're at least with strangers, with other people. Yeah, so sorry, that's a long-winded way to answer your question. But
it was a lot to.
I think there's many things concurring at the same time to make this happen.
You're so right that they're amazing films to watch with an audience, even though by their nature, his films, the things that are consistent throughout them is that they're these kind of they're dramas for adults. They're films that have they have elements of comedy in them. They have elements of romance sometimes, but they are kind of like they're films about ideas and they don't have like, it's not like a horror film or a comedy film where you want to go, it's a much more sort of, you can tell how everyone is feeling about the film around you. You don't have that with these, because they make you think, and you sit and they draw you in, and there's something about that experience. And what you said about how you just, the sheer lack of that kind of film now in theaters, films for adults, that are not kind of, clearly wedded to an existing IP or genre or whatever, is sorely needed. And there's a real irony, I think, that the thing that counted against him was his commerciality, I guess, and that he did sort of pick projects. He didn't have this sort of like, he wasn't imposing a very obvious sort of authorial like voice on things, and so that was maybe seen as, he would probably like associated at the time with someone like Ron Howard, say, or like Robert Zemeckis, right? Like, I mean, nothing against, certainly like Robert Zemeckis is obviously is
some great
someone
movies.
who's made some great movies, and hey, Apollo 13, come on, say no more.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But they're not necessarily, I don't think, presented, it would be harder to do the season approach for either of those guys compared to Weir, like, because
I did think, like, I was trying to think of other guys, and I was like, Robert Zemeckis, What Lies Beneath, to me, is like,
to be fair, it's
a masterpiece.
Yeah, a Robert Zemeckis season would be unhinged and and kind of amazing. So
it wouldn't be the same. Yeah, I don't know if we would make the same claims about his cinema, but yeah.
No, you'd be more qualified in some of the things you would say, perhaps. So I saw Megan Abbott, who hopefully will be on this podcast soon. She wrote about, there's a Weir film she reviewed, and she compared him to Michael Curtiz, which I thought was an interesting comparison that I'd not really sort of thought of before. And that, I guess the inference there is that this, as someone who is the direct, like the key creative force behind some of the greatest and most enduring Hollywood films ever, but not someone who is a household name. Like, everyone's heard of Casablanca. People haven't heard Michael Curtiz unless you're, like a cinephile. And I think Weir sort of sits in that similar.
Yeah, it's interesting because people compare Peter Weir's The Year of Living Dangerously with Casablanca a lot, because I think that's totally. I think it's very likely that he was kind of going for that. But
I think it was a review of Year of Living Dangerously that Megan said that. So
yeah, but I also heard. I would need to look at the list, but there's quite a good book by a guy. I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Reiner. He wrote about the books, the films of Peter Weir, and at some point he actually, lines up basically all the films and says what they're kind of adapting in their own way, and it's always a different classic Hollywood director, and it's kind of amazing. It's not like he stuck to one guy and was like, I'm going to do this. Like, some people say that Green Card is like a rom-com by what's his name, Bring a Baby,
Howard Hawks.
Yeah, a Howard Hawks type of rom-com. But then there are other examples of other films. So it's kind of like, he was kind of trying on these styles and kind of trying on these influences. But I think every single time making them his own, and adapting them in his own way. And this book makes a really, I think, interesting and, to me, very valid argument, which is that Peter Weir kind of takes from all these established codes that people recognize, people have, just from symbiosis almost. Like, maybe you've seen the films, maybe you haven't, but you're kind of familiar with the way that films are made, and then he kind of adapts them for a more modern audience by kind of, playing with your expectations a little bit, or if something that now would seem too, convenient or too much of a happy ending, he's gonna like kind of undercut that, but in a way that makes you feel included, and in a way that makes you feel smart, and that makes you believe in it even more. And I think that's a very accurate way. But as you say, without bringing attention to himself, it doesn't look like, necessarily, unless you're actively thinking about, this is Peter Weir, this is the guy who made this and this and this, you can totally kind of not pay attention to that. It's not like, I feel like sometimes a way to think what is an art house movie in a way. Sometimes it's a film that can kind of, not that it brings attention to what it's doing, but like you can see it more, maybe even in a Hollywood movie. And the thing with Peter Weir is that like he knows how to conceal what he's doing, so you don't sit there necessarily like analyzing it, in a intellectual fashion. Like, yeah, that can come later or on your second or third rewatch, but you can totally kind of get, taken, carried away.
I do truly think that's his genius, and I do think that I don't know, we can get into in a bit like what your actual favorite Weir film is, but I think the number for me, that the number one calling card for his greatness is The Truman Show, because watching it this time around, I just couldn't help be blown away by just the sheer, like, it's truly like a miracle of a film, in that it is as successful as it is at so many things, on so many levels of, where you are in your life when you see it, how old you are. Like, I watched it at the BFI, and sat in front of me was a dad with his teenage son and his daughter, who needed a booster seat, so was pretty young, like sort of 5 or 6, and she sat there wrapped throughout it. And just to have something that is that successful as a sort of movie commercial sort of enterprise for all audiences, have that many ideas to tackle something that was kind of cutting edge at the time and not to date at all. Like, now that's maybe the main thing with Truman Show. Like, I cannot understand how that film hasn't dated. Because obviously it uses, in terms of the I guess it helps that the actual Burbank, like, it's this sort of pastiche of 50s Americana, so it's deliberately kind of ageless. But I mean more in the sense of that what it's telling you about reality TV, and which, another extraordinary thing is that reality TV hadn't really cut through at that point in 1997. Like, I remember very clearly the turn of the millennium, the year 2000, being suddenly everything was reality. Big Brother and Pop Idol, and I mean, there were things like The Real World and like the odd thing, but like, it actually predates reality TV in a way that seems like impossible.
Yeah, it's funny because people also point to the film Ed TV as being a bit of a film that also kind of saw a lot of how.
Was it the same year? It was
it's
around the same time,
99?
wasn't it? So a couple of years later.
Yeah. So that's even more impressive. That's just, I don't know. Yeah, to know that, like, there were no. But I think it's interesting actually, because when I rewatched it, because I had rewatched it a few years ago when I first did the Peter Weir season at the Prince Charles Cinema, and I rewatched it just yesterday on the 4K, which is great. And it was interesting because I thought, like, almost like, of course, as you say, the film hasn't aged in terms of what it's saying about reality TV, and in every level actually, but especially on that. But it's even, I feel like we've even regressed from what he was saying, because, like, I don't know if we want to spoil the film. I think we can probably spoil the film.
I think we can safely spoil the Truman Show, just because it's sheer. If you haven't watched it by now, then
there's a lot to talk about, and it would be hard to talk about it if we can't spoil.
I think it's quite hard. I mean, obviously the end has a big impact if you don't know what's going to happen, but it's, other than that, it's a hard film. So spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning
up, but you go ahead.
Truman Show.
Yeah.
But to me, the main thing about the movie that to me is the genius thing in terms of what it's saying, not obviously there's so many genius things, but in terms of what it's saying about this topic, is to cut at the end before we see what he's going to do. And which is amazing, because that wasn't in the script. Like, in the script there were more scenes afterwards, and like he met the girl and he was happy with the girl, and it's like,
did they film that? I can't remember if I saw they actually
filmed it actually. I have no idea, but I feel like they probably didn't. But anyway, and to me that's the point. The point is, he has privacy. He has a right to privacy, and he can do whatever he wants. And to me, that is so. Now that we all have like Instagram and stuff, and like we all like voluntarily put ourselves out there. Not all, I mean, loads of people. It's almost like that's like an antiquated thing to even think about, you know, to be like, well, what about my privacy? Like, no one's thinking about this anymore. And I feel like it's so brilliant that on top of everything else that the film is saying, that Peter Weir was like, we have to have that point in there because that's important. And it kind of, to me, adds to it's like another deeper level. It's, you know, it's almost like when you have a box and there's a false bottom, and there's like another even deeper thing in that movie, which is that like at the end when, you know, when he's free and everything, there's people, all the people in the Truman bar, which is hilarious, are like celebrating, but in this like very like American Hollywood way. They're like, you know, literally like high-fiving each other, like strangers in the bar high-fiving each other. I think Peter Weir was like, this is quite American and silly. Like people outside America don't high-five each other, strangers in a bar, like it's so, like it's football or something, you know. And then to have like the cut to, we don't know what he's going to do, and we don't even know what he's feeling. That's what I think is so brilliant, because Truman decides to not even give the satisfaction of saying what he thinks and saying what he feels in that final moment. He decides to just say a silly line that he's been saying a lot. To me, like that's like something we have forgotten. I think many people have forgotten. Then now there's this idea that you can be totally honest and real on social media and on reality TV and all this stuff, but just because you know everything about someone, you know, because that's what Christoph, the producer, says. He's like, I know everything. I've followed you your whole life. And Truman is like, no, you don't know me at all. You can't put a camera in my head. And I feel like that's a point that we have forgotten, or that many people have forgotten. And I'm glad the kids are watching this film and kind of maybe connecting with that idea.
That's such a powerful line when he says something, like, you never had a camera in my head.
Yeah, but it's like such a throwaway thing almost. It's like, it's almost like Peter was like, that's quite a powerful thing to say. It's quite anti-Hollywood. I don't know if I can like fully say it. So I'm just going to kind of put it in the middle of all the other things that are going on, because there's always at least 4 or 5 things going on in a single moment in the Peter Weir movie. So it's almost like it can go undetected, like under cover of the Hollywood machine. He can make this crazy comment.
I totally agree with that. With your sort of, I've seen a few people interpret the ending as being kind of bittersweet, in that people point out that Truman won't have a normal life once he leaves the dome, the Burbank. Like, he will be, you know, famous for the rest of his life. But I understand that, and that's true, but I've never interpreted it that way because of what you say. Like, the fact that he has privacy, like he has some control, is enough. Like that,
exactly.
it's still clearly a positive. And the thing that sort of, again, there's these layers, but like the thing that hit me a bit this time is, I mean, that ending is his big rebellious, I'm breaking free of containment, I'm taking ownership myself, but it is constructed so perfectly as like a TV finale moment, like it, and that sort of lends it this air of like, oh, is this just another? And he deliberately plays into it, as you say, by giving the line and the bow, but this idea that it's just, you know, it's just another, like, this big moment for him.
But I think it's almost like he doesn't play into it with the line, because at that moment, if I remember, it's like Christoph is asking him like, oh, I think he just says, say something, you know, do something, or like, tell me, you know, or he's like,
saying out there's not, you know, you're not going to get anything better out there.
And instead of Truman is like literally back turned, which is genius. Like, we don't know what his face, we don't know what this is like literally the one angle they don't have. Is like, we don't see his face, we don't know what he's thinking. And he turns around and he does this like rehearsed thing. So we don't know what he's thinking, we don't know what he's feeling. Like, he's smiling, but like that's just what he does every time. He's like doing the polite thing that he's always been doing. So I think in a way he's playing into it, but he's also not playing into it. Like, this is like the most unsatisfying thing. Like, he should, what Christoph wants is for him to give like the most honest, the most genuine reaction to anything that's ever happened. But like he refuses to do that for him, which I think is because Truman is a genius, and he's also like very angry at this point. I mean, he's so angry that he manages to overcome his fear of water, which I think is so amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that the kind of the way that is shot, that final sequence. I mean, the whole film has this. And again, the other sort of reason watching at this time, I was like, this is would, I think, forever be Peter Weir's calling card, is just the sheer level of like visual wit throughout it. Like, the sight gags are so perfectly executed throughout. From the awkward product placement and the cars all pulling in to block
Yeah.
his exit. All of that is so amazingly composed by Weir and Peter Bizou, the cinematographer. Like that's just something that is very, very few people can execute, I think. Like, and it does feel that stuff in particular feels Spielberg-esque, I think. And
I was just gonna say, because like the same day that I rewatched the Truman Show, I saw Minority Report, and I don't know if you remember, but there's a bit in Minority Report where uh, the Tom Cruise character is like running away from the guys, and at some point he jumps on a guy that's got a jetpack, and at some point the jetpack guy with Tom Cruise on top, they get into a flat, and the flames of the jetpack set fire to a row of hamburgers for no reason. It's just a visual joke. But I remember watching that and being like, that's just a bit like, I mean, it's funny, but also so like, what's it got to do with anything? Whereas in the Truman Show, like all the visual jokes to me never felt like they took away from what was going on, because at the end of the day, they're extremely dark jokes. Like there was actually a moment that I hadn't even spotted. It was Paul, another Paul, who was watching the film with me, Paul Red, and he was like, "Did you notice this?" And I didn't, so we actually rewinded and watched it. And it's a bit where the camera that is filming the scene we're seeing is actually in a vending machine that is being refilled by Truman's best friend. And Truman is like talking to his best friend. He's like, I think something's going on. Like he's panicking, starting to realize what's happening. And his friend is like refilling, putting some like candy bars or something into the thing. But then at some point, Truman is like, he's reached the end of the road that he has to fill. And Truman turns around because he's like panicking or whatever. And the guy, the best friend, actually takes out some of the candy bars that he had put because he's realized he didn't have enough to continue. And he needs to continue because that's the shot.
yeah.
And it's like you literally you cannot see it. Like there's nothing in the frame calling at your attention to that visual joke, but it's, if you notice it, it's like hilarious, but it's also so dark, and it's in keeping with obviously the theme of the whole thing, which is that the guy's always conscious of where the camera is, and he's trying to get the angle because that's his job. His job is not to actually be a friend to Truman.
Yeah, I've watched the film probably 10 times, and I've never picked up on that moment.
It's amazing.
That's incredible. And I'm not. Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty.
There must be so many others that I haven't even noticed.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think initially the script, as I've been sort of researching this, it was the Andrew Niccol script was harder edged and more dour, and it was Weir who insisted on having a level of having a lighter side and some humor in there. And then obviously having Jim Carrey in the lead role. I mean, I'm older than you, Elena, and let me tell you, the Jim Carrey phenomenon, I was there for it, and there's been nothing like it before or since. I cannot tell you how much Jim Carrey meant to me and lots of other frail, pale young boys like me in the mid-90s, because it was kind of, I was too old for like Eddie Murphy and like people like that, and it was I guess I don't know who the next big comedy star would be after him. He was the first actor to earn $20 million for a role. I think that was a big story at the time. But he had this year where he did Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber in the same year, and blew everybody's minds. And obviously those films are, his performances in those films are quite different from that in the Truman Show. And so when I first saw it, I saw the Truman Show when it came out. I was about 12 years old, maybe. And it completely blew my mind, like few things have before or since. But when I watched it, the whole thing was about, it's Jim Carrey being serious. And that was so his performance was seen through the lens of like, he's quite good because he's being serious. But now, obviously, he's played other serious roles, and you bring less of that to it. And it's just an amazing performance. Like it's truly brilliant. Yeah.
It's just an amazing. And I think it's so true what you're saying about like you were talking about the levity of the film and him. I really think it's like, yes, on one level, of course, Peter Weir I'm sure worked on, making it lighter than it was and all that. But there are little moments that like nothing all that funny, on paper is happening, but it's just Jim Carrey's performance and the way he manages to sell us this guy who is an eccentric person, who is a guy who's always looking for a joke, the way Jim Carrey often is in his characters. But that's almost all like outside the screenplay. Like that's just him doing it. Like, for example, I think the scene where, at the very, very beginning of the film, where Jim Carrey, Truman, is sitting on the beach and he's very sad and suddenly it starts raining, but just on himself. And he gets up and he's like walking away, and then he realizes it's only been raining on that level. And then he does this thing where he's like chasing the rain, or like he's trying to get away from the rain, and then eventually it starts raining everywhere. But the way he does the running is funny in a way that is Jim Carrey funny. Like it's him inserting this level of joke in it. He's doing it in an almost like slapstick way, like running like a character in a cartoon in a way that another actor wouldn't have done that because, or very few would have done it. But it adds another level to the comedy, and I think I don't know, and I think it's also just like because his life, Truman's life, is so bleak, and you kind of feel like him being this eccentric guy who's always trying to make jokes and always saying like puns and stuff and like having these little phrases. That's him trying to make his life less boring, trying to make his life more fun. And it betrays, to me, it's like, it shows to you that he's like on the brink, man. He's like not well. And I really like that the first scene, the very first line in the movie that we hear him say is something like, I don't think I can make it, And I think he's quoting from something. I haven't figured out what he's quoting from. I don't know if it's a movie or something, that he's doing a performance in the mirror. But it's literally like, I don't think I can make it. And then the next scene, he's getting to work and he's letting all these people through the turnstile. And then he jokes. He's like, oh, I'm not in a rush to get there. Obviously, that's a joke. But also, you're just like, wow, he hates his life. Like, he's so bored of his life. And to have Jim Carrey play that way, you kind of feel like you're watching someone who's like on the brink and trying to find some joy somewhere. So it makes sense to me.
There's very few actors at that time or now that can kind of carry off what he's asked to do in this, which is an extremely compelling everyman figure that you get behind completely and are happy to watch in all manner of like interactions. And Weir apparently saw Ace Ventura and said, "That's who I want." And that again is clearly some sort of sign of his supernatural, instincts as a filmmaker, because I don't think many people would see him bending over and talking out of his butt to Tone Loc and be like, I want you to anchor this huge drama for me. But he can do it. You mentioned earlier about again watching it anew and like the things that stood out, like you said about him sort of adopting certain filmmakers for different films, and it's such an obvious point, but it never really occurred to me before how much Jim Carrey is doing Jimmy Stewart and how much Weir is doing Capra. Like, this is the Truman Show is like our It's a Wonderful Life. Like it
100%.
It's funny, it's entertaining, but it has a true streak of kind of despair and kind of quite depressing observations about human nature and society that it interweaves in a way that it seems impossible. Like that's obviously incredibly high praise, but it really does merit that. I think it has, there are very few films that are miracles like that are able to hit all those bases successfully.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because actually I feel like whenever people talk about the Truman Show, I feel like an easy way to kind of say what the film is to say like, oh, it's like very prescient about social media or reality TV and all that. And that kind of makes it sound didactic or like, oh yeah, I get it. Like they knew back then what it would do and they kind of saw it coming. But like, how difficult is that? It's easy to be kind of dismissive on that level. But you're right. Like it's more, if you say it's like It's a Wonderful Life, you kind of actually, you're capturing more of what the texture of the film is and like what it's actually about and like the search of this guy for like a reason to live, and like the joy of life, and like just anything interesting happening to him, and just feeling kind of stuck, and that's way more what it is.
The thing about fair enough, people can say that they think it sort of anticipated influencer culture and social media, but I don't really think that's relevant, really. I mean, if it did, but it was extremely, it was extremely successful at the time, but when none of those things existed, because it just has something that it's sort of the truths at the heart of it are relevant in kind of any era. I mean, firstly, there's the idea that, and this is especially true when you're a kid, that kind of fantasy that people, or that idea people have is just like, am I at the center of the universe? Is everyone just an actor around me? So there's that side of it. But there's also this, it's very much a sort of midlife crisis film as well, and that he's reached this point of adulthood, and it reminds, it's like the Talking Heads song Once in a Lifetime, this is not my beautiful house, this is not my beautiful wife. He's looking around and thinking, how did I get here? And that works in any era, any time.
Timeless.
It's a timeless sentiment. So yeah, I think the sort of prescient, it being a prescient is, yes, I mean, the fact that it's able to talk about those things at the time and incorporate technology. The most dated thing about it is Ed Harris's Kangol hat, I think, which in 1998 was like that was the real sign of sophistication. And there was like a 6-month period in 1998. Samuel L. Jackson was always wearing one, and people were like, Kangol hats, man, that's the future. That hasn't dated well, but other than that,
I think that might come back though. It's been 25 years. It's about time.
Everything does. So this is we're at the point of the cycle where just get on Vinted and start snapping them up and selling them. I'll tell you what has dated well is the cast. I mean, what a rich cast. I mean,
Paul
of my
Giamatti.
favorite Paul Giamatti in what is, I don't know, what 9th, 10th build role, like quite a small role, but he does, like, the weight he has to carry in those moments, having someone as good as him there, it really makes it. I mean, his sort of
stuff he does in the film is very significant. Like, he's a tiny character, but he does very, very important things that, like, kind of gonna, he's the guy who, like, has to press the buttons to increase the wind and the storm and stuff that's gonna maybe kill Truman.
And him refusing to do that is an incredibly powerful moment, and you see the kind of the weight of that decision. Yeah. It's interesting. Ed Harris, I remember actually, this was even as a precocious 12-year-old boy, I was reading a lot of film magazines and news, and I remember the story about Dennis Hopper being fired from the Truman Show, who was initially in the role of Christoph. And that's a really interesting one. You can't help, I mean, Ed Harris is wonderful in the film, but
there's a restraint to his performance that's like, terrifying. It's like so icy. Like you feel like he's kind of, he's walking on eggshells. Like he's not an emotionally well person. I think that's kind of the impression I get, is that he's like a guy who thinks he's in control. Obviously he's got a big control thing, but like you feel like he's capable of doing crazy stuff if he suddenly feels like he's not in control, and he does. It's really well done.
Well, again, watching it for this new viewing, like how he plays him as this abusive father figure. I mean, again, it's not a sort of novel observation. You really see the love he has for Truman, that he has this completely warped mechanism of demonstrating and showing to him, like, just so many shots that linger with you, like him sort of cradling the iPad and just feeling. And it's another thing with this film. There are just stray little moments and lines that suggest this hugely like dark undercurrent that you're left to sort of. Despite it being this like giant commercial comedy drama, there are still things that unsettle me in it that much more than in films with that's
Yeah.
quote unquote darker or more
I
more
think it's
serious.
I think it's because it leaves some of those things kind of not unexplored, but just kind of open. But clearly the work has been done. You're talking about like the other characters, like the dramatic character, a lot of work has been done to say what is he, what is
Mm.
like morals, where does he stand on this, how long maybe has he been working there, all this stuff. And then I think one of the big ones for me is the Laura Linney character. Like she is on some level monstrous, but on another level when she's being threatened by Truman and she's like, I can't work under these conditions. This
Yeah.
is so unprofessional. You kind of, she's not wrong. And so you're kind of wondering like how does she reconcile what she's doing every day? But it's kind of like the film doesn't go to explore that much more. It's just leaving it to the actors to suggest all this stuff. And that's why, as you're saying, the film stays with you. It's like it's not like everything has been explained. And I don't want to be mean to Steven Spielberg so much, but I feel like something that I feel sometimes when I watch his films, as amazing as they are, and they are amazing. I think Minority Report was amazing, but I feel like kind of everything has been said. Or like the wife character in Minority Report is a non-character. Like there's nothing there. Like it's just she just was sad. 6 years didn't have a boyfriend or anything. Gets back with what? Like I don't know. It's fine. It's a movie. It's a Spielberg movie. But you know what I mean? Like I feel like in Truman Show, there are all these things that are not fully finished and not finished, but they are unresolved. And I think that's way more realistic. Most people in their lives are dealing with things that they haven't fully reckoned with,
Mm.
and that's I kind of like the idea that instead of doing a whole like I don't know, like dystopian thing where everybody's okay with this and like people are so crazy now that they all think this is okay. It's like no one thinks this is okay, but there are all these reasons why it's happening and why people need this to happen. And that's obviously the way we live now and the way we live all the time. But like I just think that's what makes the movie so haunting, is that it's very realistic in that sense and
Mm.
very emotionally realistic and like psychologically realistic, but for every character.
Yeah. I was going to mention, I mean, my two favorite, I truly think that the secret to this film's working as well as it does might be Laura Linney's character, his wife on the show, and Noah Emmerich's character as well, the best friend. And it's precisely because of what you said, which is that you are left to interpret what their exact relationship is. I mean, one of the most powerful moments in the whole film for me is when Noah Emmerich's character, the best friend whose name is escaping me, is giving that speech to him on the pier, and it's so heartfelt, and he's about how he would never lie to him, and then the cut to Christoph dictating the monologue to him in his earpiece or whatever is just, it's my favorite moment in the film. I mean, it's devastating, but it's just so effective, so good. But like you say, Laura Linney's character, the wife, like her, that sort of vox pop she does, where she's like, "This is my life," like that. I think about that. If you just think about that for a while, like there's so much to get to. Like, does that mean she has had a complete psychotic break with reality? Does it mean that she's able to sort of, completely segmentize and like cut off like sides of her brain? Like, does she actually love Truman? Like, is that I mean, it seems unlikely, but is it just the ultimate methods acting job for her?
Yeah.
These are the things that keep me awake at night when I think about her. And I just think two absolutely wonderful actors as well that I love seeing in everything. I mean, I've got off the Prestige TV train a long time ago, but I did make time to watch the Americans, and
Same.
Noah Emmerich holds that whole show together. Like, it's his that performance. There's something about him. He has this
he's
sort
kind
of
like stone-faced guy. Like you kind of don't know what he's feeling a lot of the time. And it's funny because he's not even the one playing the spies. He's not even playing a spy.
No.
In that show, which is funny.
There's a sort of integrity to him that, but
you trust him.
Yeah,
you just trust him,
which he manages to play off really well in both of these roles. And Laura Linney is just one of the great comic actresses.
Yeah, but it's funny actually thinking about what we're talking about, like the fact that all these other people, like you kind of left thinking like, why do they do this? It's almost like, I mean, this is This is just screenwriting. I think this is just the logic of the film. But like the whole film is Truman being like, basically, as you were saying, midlife crisis. He's trying to figure out why he's actually doing anything. Like, he's really looking at his life and being like, that's why am I doing? Like, basically, I'm just being a robot at this stage. Like, I'm just following. I don't want to just do what everybody does because that's what you're supposed to do at that certain age or whatever. But then you look at these other characters, and it's kind of like they're not doing that. They're like intentionally not asking themselves the questions, even though they're not.
Mm.
You know, they're leading very different lives. They're not. Um, she's not, the Laura Linney character is not actually a wife in a small town, nurse, normal job, family stuff. She's an actress who's doing a job that's like an amazing job to get for an actress, I suppose. She's famous, whatever. But even though she's not leading that life, she's leading a life that she's like in denial about. Like clearly
Mm.
she's not handling it well at the end. Like she's like tormented about it. Because she's really bad at it. She's really, really bad when things start to go wrong. She doesn't know how to deal with it at all. Because I think she's kind of tormented and she's never really thought it through because it's too horrible to contemplate. So it's kind of amazing because it's like Truman is the one kind of being like, unintentionally, unconsciously, making all these other people, except I guess the Noah Emmerich character, he doesn't seem that bothered, face what they're doing, and face the facts of which is also what he's making us face as viewers. Like, what are you doing with your life? It's just brilliant. It's just brilliantly thought out.
It's kind of hinted at, the Noah Emmerich, the fact that he doesn't really, it's kind of suggested that he might just be like a kind of himbo actor. Because when he's called upon to actually do something, he's just kind of he's absolutely hopeless. So I think with him, it's just that he doesn't think he's just.
That is possible, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also the really funny moment where they're trying to they found out that Truman is on a boat and they're trying to get a boat to go to him. And then and the actor can't do it, and the guy's like, they're just actors.
Yeah.
Like they don't know how to do things. They're just actors. Which feels like a funny comment from her.
That feels like a director or screenwriter even.
Pointed comments from.
Well, there's an amazing quote from Ethan Hawke about why Weir doesn't make films anymore, and he said, I think working with Russell Crowe and Johnny Depp broke him, and he doesn't want to work with actors anymore. So I wonder. I mean, it's not Truman Show is not the most sympathetic film to actors and the craft of acting that I've ever seen. It's a fairly dim view of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's probably a lot of reasons why, but yeah, that's a funny thing for him to say.
I was like, what really surprised me looking at Weir's filmography is that the Truman Show he made 2 films after the Truman Show, Master and Commander and The Way Back, which is just, for a film as expertly made as this one, for that to be, I only make 2 more films after that just feels wrong. It doesn't make sense. I mean,
it's hard to know why. I think some people say, and he has said he just retired. He just didn't really feel like doing it anymore, which could make sense because if you've reached the peak of your powers with these films, you don't need to prove anything else to anyone. And maybe you want to do something else with your life, which I get it. I understand. But I also think it's also seems to me quite possible that the landscape changed so much that it's not possible, even if you're Peter Weir.
As we started saying, it's just his stock in trade is just not a thing anymore. Or if it is, it's existed briefly on streamers when they were trying to have a more rounded catalogues. But what he does best has been over the last decade kind of phased out.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe as we've said, this sort of clear appetite for these films is going to change that. Do you remember, was this the first Peter Weir film that you saw?
That's a very good question. Probably yes. Probably on television when I was growing up. I feel like I definitely knew about it. I had seen it on TV, whatever. I knew the concept for a long time. Then I think probably the next one was Dead Poets. Yeah, I think that's basically it.
I
but
have a
not at the
vivid,
cinema, like just on TV.
I have a vivid memory of seeing the poster for Green Card around when I was a kid.
Okay.
Or maybe it was in like Blockbuster or video. I have very sort of like distinct memories of
Wow.
seeing
It's quite
posters
a
in.
memorable poster.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
did
it's
not see
not
Green
particular.
Card. I didn't see it like growing up or anything, like even on television,
No.
even though it's got Depardieu in it. Maybe that's why actually, because it's like he's obviously acting in English, so I don't even know how they would. I don't know if he did his own French dub. He might have. That would make
Yeah, I
sense.
didn't
It
even
would
thought
be
about
weird to
that.
watch him with another voice. Like,
Mm.
yeah.
Well, as I said to you uh, previously off air, I watched Green Card recently, and it didn't work particularly well for me. Which I will caveat by saying that I think it reason it didn't work is because it so heavily relies on the charm of Gerard Depardieu
Mm,
as a romantic lead, which, given some of the things we know about him now, is a tough sell for me
it is
personally.
harder. There are
Um,
some of his films that I can still watch and be completely amazed by because they're amazing films. Like
mhm,
Cyrano de Bergerac to me is like a perfect film, and
mhm,
he is amazing in it. This film, I don't think he's particularly good in it. I think the
mm,
film is very interesting, but I don't think he's. I think actually, kind of both actors are kind of the weak elements, but the idea of it and like kind of the screenplay to me is like very very interesting, but the execution is a bit weird. And I'm pretty sure that I read that Depardieu didn't speak English and he learned his dialogue phonetically, which
yeah, I can see that.
probably is not a good thing.
No, I mean,
I
you're
don't know if
right.
that's ever worked.
You were talking about films that just would not get made now. Like, it's an unhinged idea for a film. It's about
Crazy.
like a kind of an elite botanist who marries a French waiter for visa reasons for him, and so that she can get this really really nice apartment. It's all about, like, so much of it is about the kind of
The legal things, like
bureaucratic
yeah,
loopholes you can get through to
yeah.
obtain property,
Just
and
to live
which
your
is
life as you want to live. And I think it's,
mm,
to me, that's the interesting part. Is that like it's trying to meld romance in a way that's very, very Peter Weir, very like, oh, it's, ineffable thing that happens, there's no,
mm,
it's just chemistry, whatever, with the horror of like those regulations and those limitations that are just horrific. Like it's crazy that she would need to have a husband to get a flat that she wants. Like that is just that should I don't even know if that's legal. Like that should be illegal to me.
mm.
And of course that he can't, stay in the country. That's another level to me of like absurdity. And it's amazing. You're right. It's like a crazy premise. It's a crazy material to work with for a rom-com.
It's an interesting thing as well. Where I was talking about Mike Leigh. We're visiting a lot of Mike Leigh films, and something noticed in his work is how interested he is in what people do for work, like their jobs. And that's very
Mm.
true of Weir as well. Like, he, really takes you through, whether it's, the producers and on the Truman Show, and how the process works, or, Master and Commander as well. Like, that's a great, like, you have an excellent understanding of what a maritime fleet, what a few seasons on the sea actually entail with that. Like, that's something that he clearly, and same with like Green Card, that we get a lot of botany in there, and which is good.
Yeah.
um, I remember going back to the Truman Show. I remember it was the first Weir film I saw, and yeah, I actually remember getting. I remember it so clearly that I remember I saw it because I got an advanced preview screening, which means if you're growing up in like the West Country, it means you get to see it like a day early, maybe a few hours early. And I got like tickets from Empire, which I read and collected avidly. I went and saw it, and just remember being just the end. I just remember how I felt at the end of the film, just being so moved by it, even though I didn't, 12 years old. A lot of the themes the Truman Show is exploring were lost on me, but I just that music, the imagery, it's such a powerful ending, especially in the cinema. Like I say, just that music, those swelling like Philip Glass strings, is kind of undeniable. I knew then I was watching something special.
Hmm.
Um, And
Do you
I'd
feel the
seen
same
The
way when
Lost
you
World to
rewatched it?
Jurassic Park just
Oh,
a
yeah.
few weeks before, so I knew what
Wow.
special looked like. Sorry, what was that?
I was
Do I
saying, did
still?
you feel the same way when you rewatched it recently at the
Yeah,
cinema?
absolutely. I found that's still incredibly effective as just a piece of soaring. I also, one thing I noticed is thinking about it in the kind of landscape of 90s films and films that have really endured.
Mm.
Like, I realized that the structure is exactly the same as the Shawshank Redemption. The way that final sequence plays out
Really?
in that the way, same with Shawshank, like they both go to bed and then you slowly learn along with everyone else what's happened, which is that he's
Mm-hmm.
escaped. Like the way that, like
Yes.
you're with Truman the whole way through, like you're with Andy Dufresne in the Shawshank Redemption, and suddenly you switch it's the way to sort of execute the twist in the most dramatically
Mm.
effective way. But there's just something about, like, I was just thinking about how those two films have just continue to endure, and they will be, if you have an IMDb top 250, like they will be there. They will be, your dad's. It's damning with faint praise, but like your dad's favorite film or whatever. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
something about two films about God's lonely man, like kind of someone who is,
Freedom.
yeah, trying to like escape his awful wife and uh stifling uh, suburban bourgeois existence. Um, I was like, is it just that simple? It's just it's
Yeah.
got this people just want to see people get out of their
Mm. It's funny
day to
because
day drudgery.
the main so in terms of, yeah, comparing to other films from the era, the main observation I had, or I have every time I watch Truman Show, is that like there are so many films of that time that are kind of, yeah, about midlife crisis or
Mm,
about just the fabric of reality and like questioning the fabric of reality and hoping for something different. Obviously, The Matrix, but even like Office Space. Like I really
mm,
love the bit in Truman Show where
so
the
true.
best friend is like, "You have a desk job. I'd kill for a desk job." I'm
Mm,
like, what are you saying? I mean, I kind of get it, but also it's quite funny phrase. Um, and I mean, like, there's probably others that I'm forgetting, but like, and I was thinking, I was like, what was that about? Was it about? I think to me, it was genuinely about the turn of the millennium, and people were like, maybe the apocalypse will come and we will get something better, and
yeah,
all these rules are actually fake, and we can
mm,
escape.
it's definitely a Gen X thing. This idea,
Mm,
just like of like ennui, like existential ennui, like there has
mm,
to be more than this, like
yeah.
striving for whether that's other realities or conspiracy or whatever. Like it definitely feels, yeah, it's a high watermark of like Gen X art, along with the Matrix and Office Space. You're right. That would be a good season as well.
Yeah.
Um,
I actually wrote a piece years ago now for BFI Online about those films, about 1999. There was also
mm,
I think it's actually 2000, 2001, but A Scanner Darkly, which is also about
mm.
that. There's like so many films like this, especially American films that are all about this. And I agree. I think it will be a great season. I
Yeah,
will happily do that.
well, Philip K. Dick had this massive renaissance at the end of the 90s where it's just adaptations or things inspired by him, like that kind
Hmm.
of, like either it was direct adaptations or like The Matrix or like, like Gattaca, the Andrew Niccol film, like things like Dark City, things like that. Like
Hmm.
that was the real trend.
Yeah.
So, but is this but yeah, so it was the first you saw, but is this your favorite Weir, or is it?
I think it's genuinely, I'm not trying to be, funny, but I think it's genuinely very
I
hard
love
to
all
pick
my
a
children
favorite.
equally. Yeah.
I really like it's really, really hard. Like I don't know. I think on the level of just I don't know, just like emotionally, just the film that I feel like it's my thing, or like
Mm,
I'm not my thing, but like I feel very close to. I think is Journey Witness. Because
mm,
to me that is such a I like the simplicity of it. Like, I like that it's so stripped away. Like he strips away dialogue, he strips away plot. There's so little things. Like Truman Show is like a perfect film, but it's like so much happens. And we haven't mentioned that Truman Show somehow is only an hour 43 or something, which is insane.
Yeah, it flies by.
You would think that if that film was made now, it would be 2 hours 25. It would not be an hour 40.
Yeah, particularly because it's a film that is all about, a struggle, right?
Yeah.
And the argument is always to justify lengths of films like that is that we have to feel
Yeah.
like
And also
Shawshank Redemption.
obviously, yeah.
There's the Mark Kermode line about there being a lot of Shawshank before you get to the redemption. Like with the Truman Show, you don't have it's just as powerful, but it doesn't have, it's so economical with how it tells the story.
It's like you're like almost like it's weird because it's almost like they were worried we were gonna have too much time to think about it. But if you think about it, it still makes sense. It still works perfectly. There's no, as far as I'm aware, there's no loose ends to anything that. Yeah, I guess some people are like, oh, but he's never gonna be free. He's gonna be famous. Like, I don't think that's a loose end. And also the idea, I guess, one thing that I was thinking about at the end of the film is that like he's leaving Christoph, but he's actually just going in Christoph's world. But he is still living. He's living the power of Christoph. He's no longer under his power. So it still totally works. Yeah. So I was saying, Truman Show, perfect film, perfectly constructed, emotionally just very satisfying, very funny, very dark, all those things. But I don't know. I think I find, I don't know. It's not. It's. I don't like to. I don't want to make it sound like Truman
Yeah.
is not doing that, but I find that Witness has such a boldness to it in the simplicity of it and in the the silences and the charisma that it just lets things happen in a way that I find very breathtaking, but also brave and just the kind of cinema that's like feels so miraculous in a different way, I guess. It's miraculous in the way that you're like, how did he know? How did he know this would work? How did he know this would be enough? How did he know he didn't need to do more? How did he know he to calibrate all those things? To me is just, yeah. And also, I don't know. I just think Harrison Ford's performance is just he's just such, it makes you understand what acting is. It's like he doesn't have to do that much. The character is not, there's not that much said about him. Like he's pretty simple cop character from a movie, but you discover his soul throughout the film, and that's it. And you don't need to know more. And I like the idea that it's like, it's actually, now I think about it, it's not that different from the idea of Truman that I was talking about, which is that like we see everything of Truman, but we don't know him. We don't know what he actually feels. We don't know what, we know what he feels because we've seen the film, but the people watching the Truman Show in the film don't know him. They're not his friends. They're not like his loved ones. They don't know what he's like in a real way. They just see this version of him that's edited by whoever. And I feel like in Witness, what happens where between the characters of Harrison Ford and Kelly McGillis is kind of similar. It's like they don't know they don't know anything about each other, but they know each other in a way that his cop friends in the city don't know him. And I find that such a gorgeous idea. And it's almost like there's fewer ideas in Witness, but they're really important ideas and they're really beautiful ideas. And to make a film about that, and to make about also that kind of restores your understanding of why violence is bad. It's just such a gorgeous idea, and it's such I don't know. It's like you don't expect that in a Hollywood movie. In a Hollywood movie, there has to be a shootout at the end. There has to be dead people. There has to be all these things, and it's the opposite of that in a way that is just stunning. Like I just don't. Yeah.
Well, you were saying about with Spielberg how as much as great as he is, there's this idea that there's not a huge amount under the surface there, which is not entirely. I don't think you're exactly saying that, but like but like compared to something like this, and I think it's so interesting that obviously Weir did the Cars that Ate Paris, which was sort of like slight outlier, but then his next two films, Picnic at Hanging Rock and The Last Wave, are incredibly like opaque, in their storytelling. Like they are nebulous. They're hard to get your hands around, your arms around, particularly like The Last Wave. Like they are challenging, in a way that I think probably stood him in good stead for entering the kind of Hollywood studio system and being able to sort of operate, what better sort of way of describing directing is like knowing what to show when, or, like
exactly.
that's the mark of a true talent. And that's the thing throughout that his later works is that he knows exactly when to pull back, and and not make people uncomfortable or feel like they're missing out, or like, and exactly when to sort of move forward.
Yeah.
And it is just this amazing filmography, because like you, I mean, I love Fearless. Like, I think Witness is brilliant, but like Fearless is really a film that stuck with me and I like to revisit. And then Master and Commander, which is just this, it's been so sort of amazing to see the cult following for that film grow in the way that it has.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't this huge flop, but like,
No.
it seems to, in the narrative of the film now, it's sort of like presented that way. Like, oh, you know, no one cared about it when it came out, but now everyone's got a back tattoo with oceans become battlefields.
I've got my appointment with the tattooist booked for.
Yeah, that's
after
how
the
you're going to
season.
celebrate the end of the season, isn't it?
Yeah. To remember
everyone,
it. You know,
everyone who worked on it are going to get matching. The year is what the year is.
Yeah.
Back tattoos.
1805.
Oceans become battlefields. It is an incredible opening title card. I mean, I'm not a tattoo person really, but I saw that and was like, that's.
But you know what's
I have
amazing?
No qualms with that.
I assumed that because obviously I had seen the tattoo image like everyone else. I assumed that this was like a very deep fried meme by this point, that it was like old and like just a meme, a joke. It's not. It's from, I think it's from 2021. You can still see the post on Instagram. It's like a recent thing, and I don't know. I really wanted to try and find the guy who got it, but I didn't manage.
Also, you couldn't get tattoos during the pandemic, so someone would have been stewing the entire pandemic and being like, as soon as we're allowed outside, I'm getting a Master and Commander tattoo.
Yeah,
like,
every day.
Just waiting by the door, just like.
Every day during the pandemic, he was doing the thing where you're like, you're supposed to, like, if you want to do something crazy, the idea is that you're like supposed to like sleep on it. He was like every day being like, yeah, I still want to do it. To do it.
I'm checking in with myself. Yeah, and that's still the plan.
yeah, I still want to do it.
Well, fair play. I mean, that person, I'm assuming it was a man.
It was a man. It was in America. I mean, it looks like a man. It looks like a man's back. I think it's a man.
Yeah. I'm just so distracted by the text. Clocked what kind of back it was. But yeah, I mean, that's just a film that now has become, your screenings of it as part of the season have been sellouts, right? And hugely popular.
There was a screening in the big screen NFT one that was selling really well, and then we're doing an IMAX screening that's sold out. That's going to be next week. I don't know when this is coming out, but yeah, it's going to be great.
I told you that I've set up a sound system and I like to test it with the Master and Commander 4K.
Nice.
because it's famously, the levels are very good, because you hear, because you're on different decks and you can hear it's just something I like to do, is just play some of the battle sequences of Master and Commander and check that everything's working okay.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's an incredibly rich filmography of Weir, and his sort of reappraisal, I think, is long overdue, and you've done an amazing job, I think, with your BFI season and your previous Prince Charles season of making more people come to his work and appreciate him for the genius that he is. And I think, as we said, I completely subscribe to that. After the Truman Show, truly, I think, is this miracle work of genius that people will be watching in 100 years' time, if there is a planet in 100 years' time.
Yeah.
So yeah, and seasons like this and conversations like this and everything I think it all helps to keep the legend of the film.
And I do think actually that's something about his films, is that because of all the reasons we mentioned, I think these are films that people, they do want to talk about them maybe after they've recovered emotionally, but they do want to like discuss them. There's like, and also they are films kind of, as much as they are kind of often about an individual journey, a guy struggling with his own emotions, it's like they ultimately always seem to be about connection and about like kind of being with people and being in the world and being in contact, in friction with stuff around you. And I feel like that's like, first of all, that's like a rare message to have in any movie, but also a rare feeling, even if it's not, spelled out that way. But also because these are films that are not open-ended, but to some degree open-ended, or just where everything is thought out, keeps haunting you in your mind, people really want to talk about them. And I feel like that's a kind of like cinephilia that's that is what I want, and that I think is what cinephilia is about. Like, it's not about being an expert and like saying your piece and then everybody has to agree with you or disagree with you. I feel like it has both when I did the Prince Charles season and when I'm doing this one at the BFI. What I've seen, the response is so warm, and like people are so, into exchanging and stuff, and like people amongst themselves. Like it feels like that's, first of all, that's what people are hungry for, but also that's what the films do. Yeah, it's another thing that he's incredible at doing with his films. It's just very satisfying. So yeah, as much as like I don't know, I feel like I can't take too much credit. I think it's just what I've done is just tell people like, did you guys know it's the same guy who did all those films? And that's generally the first reaction people have. They're like, I didn't realize that was the same guy.
But that's all film curation and preservation is being like, hey, did you see?
Yeah,
look at this. Look what I found.
I guess so.
So
check this out. Yeah,
it's very important work. You mentioned you saw Minority Report. Are there any other old movie? You have one of the great physical media libraries. Is there any other old movies you've seen recently
that I've seen recently
that you would like to recommend or catch you on the hop?
because that's the podcast, right? It's old movies. Truman Show is not that old. I guess it is. It's like 25.
Well, old movies means anything that's more than 10 years old, I think.
Fair enough.
Even then, just the idea of going back and revisiting things is
yeah.
But there will be some pretty old movies coming up. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, the Truman Show is what, nearly 30 years old.
Oh my God. That is crazy.
You're currently working on a box set for Histoire de Cinema. I mean, that's fairly time consuming.
Yes, it is.
It's not an easy task.
No.
In your work as producer.
But is that
Radiance?
a film? I don't know. What is it? That's the question.
Sounds like that's an essay that should be on the booklet. Is this a film?
Yeah. A film that I watched quite recently that I quite enjoyed. It's not a 5-star film, but it's a very interesting slasher type film called The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Oh yeah.
Which is by far the best title of any film ever, maybe. Something Peter Weir didn't work that out. I guess Picnic at New is a really good title, but it's the book. This is a full-on sui generis slasher film. That's really funny because it's from 1976, 86 minutes, solid. But it's like a very quite grueling and brutal serial killer film that literally looks to me like Zodiac. Like the murders look like Zodiac. I don't know if what's his name? The director of Zodiac, Fincher.
David Fincher.
I don't know if he saw it, but it's kind of crazy how much it looks like it. But then the director of the film, called Charles B. Pierce, decided to insert himself in the film as one of the actors who's like a hapless cop who provides comic relief at the most inappropriate times. So it's a really weird combination of things. It's like the tone is kind of crazy, but the moments with the killings work really well. The comedy thing is horror. It's quite bad, but it's very interesting. Weirdly endearing film, but it's also like really horrible. Like the deaths are, like the murders are like crazy violent. It's not even that like you see so much, but it's just like the execution is very cold and just so much like Zodiac. But yeah, really interesting film.
It's amazing how much variance there is in like the genre that is maybe the most formulaic genre there is, which is the slasher genre. Like especially in the 70s, like you do have this real sort of discrepancy between, or late 70s, 80s, the sort of fun house rides, and then the like things like that are more like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, or like Nightmares in a Damaged Brain, where you feel all the house I forget the name, Last House on the Left, things like that.
Yeah.
House on the Edge of the Park, like where you were like, did a criminal make this?
Like, yeah.
Am I watching with obviously the whole thing with the video nasty scare, right? Is that they managed to convince at least some people that like these might actually be real murders we're watching here. And it's always
like, even if they're not real, it's like the person who made this is sick,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's real, but I'm like, who is this guy?
I am a huge fan of that particular feeling. I would say that transmission is, if you could distill it, is there something? What was going on with whoever made this?
Yeah.
Like, are they all right? Like, I think
That's the
I think that
ultimate way to get people to watch the extras.
yeah,
You're like, I
exactly.
want to
Just be
know.
like, I need to know
Did
who
anyone
made
go to
this.
prison?
Yeah, yeah. That's the best because now again, this is all. I mean, you could make a podcast called Old Movies. It's all remember when like bullshit, but like
Yeah.
now those characters are making TikToks or YouTube channels. They're not making films. Like they're not
Yeah.
going to be able to rustle up enough money or convince someone to give them the budget to make their bizarre films. So we must celebrate them and preserve them.
Yeah,
In
I agree.
the vital work that we both do, many ways more vital than that of a firefighter or soldier or.
We have to preserve the work of all those weirdos.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, that's a good point, I think, to end. So thank you very much, Elena, for right again. The Peter Weir season has been, from the outside looking in, a triumph, and yeah, I hope you're happy. You're happy with how it's gone, because it's a great thing that you've done.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy that people are showing up and enjoying these films for the first or third or sixth time. It's the best feeling. Just to know that people are going is the best feeling.
And the Charles B. Pierce season that is to follow, I'm sure, will be equally
upcoming. Soon to be announced.
The BFI will seize on that with equal enthusiasm. All right, Elena, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'll catch you soon. There we go. That's all for today's episode. My thanks to Elena. Go check out her podcast, Hard Truths, and follow Animus magazine. Everything she's involved with is worth checking out. And don't forget to support us on Ko-Fi. Like and subscribe the podcast on all your favourite platforms. Get your tickets for the Transmission All-Nighter at Picture House Central. And next week, we are going to be visited by one of the Physical Media High Council, Chris Ryan from The Ringer, who is going to be discussing John Borman's legendary dark fantasy Excalibur. So that's it. To play us out is the beautiful piece of music used at the end of the Truman Show, Father Kolbe's Preaching by Wojciech Kilar. That's it. Have a great week. Bye.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.